Hi, we're the founders and coaches from Shine Bright Career Coaching. This is
Shannon.
And I'm Micah, and we're here today to talk to you about burnout. It's a very popular topic, and it's affecting a lot of us right now. So please stay tuned to the end of the video so you can understand not only how to define and understand what burnout is, but to also take a look within and see if you're on that spectrum of burnout. And lastly, and most importantly, what can you do? What are some tips and insights to help you get off that burnout path quicker and faster? So, Shannon, do you know what burnout is?
I think so. I mean, coming after these last few years of COVID and everything that's been going on, so many of my clients are coming to me exhausted, depleted, but what is actually the definition of burnout?
It's true. We are seeing all of that exhaustion and everybody is talking about burnout, but I didn't know what it was, so I had to look it up. And it's actually a medical condition. Who knew? It's defined by the World Health Organization as a long-term stress work environment. It is very specific to occupation and occupational environment. So if you're working in an environment where it does not align with, or the work you are doing does not align with your strengths, then staying in that environment and not addressing that actually is what builds into the burnout. So what I mean by that is if you're working and you're doing a great job, you could even be like climbing the ladder and all of those things, but you're feeling exhausted and mentally tired in a way that's not normal to you. It is because whatever tasks you're doing, whatever environment or the way you're being managed, that doesn't align with how you are uniquely built and how you operate, you're working and you're maybe succeeding, but you're not actually getting back that natural energy and that it's actually adrenaline. That when you do complete a task in a good environment that fits who you are, you get a lot of energy back. You get a lot of fulfillment back from actually completing that task. So to turn it back to that other environment where that doesn't happen, you keep working, and what you're doing is a lot of output and no input.
Yeah.
So it's running on an empty gas tank, and as we know, cars can't do that for a long time, and guess what? People can't either.
Makes sense.
So what happens then if we stay in that and we don't nurture and take care of ourselves or make changes is we start to actually lose a sense of who we are. We start to actually lose the ability to focus in areas that we used to be really focused in or productive in. We start to question ourselves and lose confidence, and we also start to feel pretty negative.
Yeah.
And so that negativism, it doesn't go away in a day or so. Our husbands or spouses or best friends or moms start to hear us just be negative over and over and over again. And that's typically maybe not who you are.
Yeah.
So those are like the very big symptoms that people see and start feeling pretty immediately. But imagine long term, like if you stay in that for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years.
That's what we're seeing.
Yep, that's what we're seeing.
And I think it's important to kind of differentiate this from, the stressors of work, right? I think all of us, whether we love our jobs or, or whatever about our jobs, work brings stress, right? It can bring overwhelm or, feeling exhausted after a busy week or whatnot. And so I think those are kind of some normal expectations. But I think what is really important that you outlined is like, where does it start to shift, right? Where does kind of that normal level of stress that you can actually really address pretty easily, with a good night's sleep or, a good run or whatnot, turn into what you're describing as burnout, which seems like it's this whole new level of exhaustion that's harder to come back from.
And it's continual. So what you were describing when there's manageable stress, where maybe you even go on a vacation, you come back rejuvenated, you're able to work some exercise in, and maybe you just feel better. And that stress is still there, but it's manageable. This is different. This is where you don't ever find that relief, where you might go on vacation and guess what? You come back feeling even more stressed. Or I've had so many clients say to me, Sunday nights, I just have knots in my stomach.
Yeah.
Monday mornings, I wake up in a cold sweat. That is actually not manageable stress. And that is most likely a symptom that you are on this spectrum of burnout. And where you are is an interesting thing and an important thing to really investigate and think about, because it doesn't happen overnight. Again, the World Health Organization tells us that, the longer you're in this, the more intense and the more serious the burnout is. But guess what? The symptoms can be more serious too. In addition to the negativism and the things that you're not identifying about yourself anymore, you can lose hair, you can develop insomnia, a lack of appetite, stress factors that are, breeding this chronic health within you. So it really goes quickly downhill, and there are a lot of ramifications for not addressing it.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to kind of, one, to recognize that there's a spectrum. Two, that if we're, not able to address some of these early signals or symptoms, that, where this leads can actually be really detrimental to your health. And I think, as we talk through some suggestions or ways to kind of manage this burnout, we also want to be really honest that, like, if you're in full-blown burnout, right, this is actually often something that needs to be dealt with a leave from absence, actually getting yourself out of that environment and really being able to heal, right, and rejuvenate and kind of come back from that depletion, that exhaustion. So it is really serious, and we want to kind of, note that there is this spectrum, and, dependent on where you're at, the strategies or the tools that will help you are going to be different too.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really important point. And the positive spin on it is it does start somewhere. So the earlier that you can identify that, the more honest and aware and intentional you are when you're thinking about your day and your role, and also what the next level is in your role. Often clients will come to us and they'll say, they've identified they're burned out and they need a switch. And one of the big indicators is, hey, I'm looking at where my boss is, what the next level is in this role, this trajectory I'm on, and I don't want it.
Right.
And so what's amazing, exactly, is at that point, that's someone who's identified it and they're shifting. But there are a lot of us who maybe don't have that self-awareness, and we carry on. And then we're, several years in, and that's where it starts to get very serious. So there's definitely a spectrum, and our hope and intention in this conversation is to educate you and help you gain some awareness so you can look and go, have I been feeling, like I've just been stressed and manageable stress, or is this something that's going on and I'm not recharging and I'm not able to find joy in my work at all, and maybe outside of work too?
Yeah, it's bleeding into that personal life.
100%.
I see this a lot too with my young clients, right? So I think it's pretty common. You're out of college, you really want to, maybe first or second job, you want to prove yourself, right? You're maybe working at a startup or a nonprofit, something you feel really excited about, or it feels really meaningful. There's, you believe in the work that this company's doing, and it can be really easy to kind of be, wearing a lot of hats and saying yes, to all things that are offered. And I think to a certain degree, that's a positive, right? You're learning, you're getting exposed to a lot of different things. You feel like you're doing work that is changing the world or making a positive difference. And we're not saying that that's bad, but I think where you need to kind of be bringing some self-awareness is what Micah keeps coming back to, is the difference between, wow, that was a really stressful work week and I'm exhausted, I just need to really sleep this weekend, to not being able to recharge, right? Not being able to get back to that baseline, feeling like this is bleeding into all parts of your life and starting to affect you personally. You start to affect your relationships, and no longer being able to find joy or satisfaction from the work that you originally were really excited about.
Yeah, I mean, we spend a large portion of our lives in our jobs.
Yep. So much time.
Yeah. And if we're not getting fulfillment out of that, or that burst of energy, even in a small task, that's a very big deal.
Yeah. So what can someone do if they find themselves on this spectrum, right? They're noticing that exhaustion is seeming to linger a lot longer. They're, in that bad mood that they can't quite get out of. What are some steps that people can start taking if they see themselves on this burnout spectrum?
Yeah, I love that question, because it is so much of a reminder that we are empowered to change our lives. And so the first step of that is really understanding where we are on the spectrum. So looking at, your last week and kind of taking stock of, did I at any point act out of my own kind of a different way than I normally would? Was I overly negative and critical at every step in my week? I think that's a big one that I hear. And if the answer is yes, if that you're, kind of the glass is half empty and you used to be the glass is half full, that's an indicator you're pretty far down there. But if it's more like you just see that work week piling up week after week without any achievement or joy attached to it, it's the same thing, and you're feeling like, am I going to be able to stay on top of it? Those are big indicators that that's not a good fit, right? That you didn't have that moment where it was like, oh yeah, I tackled this and now on to the next thing. That's kind of the difference, I think, or that I hear about from clients. What about you?
Well, I guess I'm kind of curious, if someone's finding themselves feeling some of these symptoms, how do they discern whether maybe this is about setting some healthier boundaries, right? Being able to learn to say no, or, learn how to, turn off the computer or whatever that may be, versus I'm in the wrong job or I'm in the wrong company.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it is through self-investigation. So like you said, setting boundaries. So test it for a week. Perhaps, your manager is asking a lot of you and you are a person that constantly takes everything in and says yes, right? Try setting up a little boundary and seeing if that alleviates anything for you. It should help you to build some more time in, right? And then what do you want to do with that time? If all you want to do is sleep and that's not who you are, it's a good indicator, right?
Yeah.
These are little things you can tweak. Another big thing is that loss of sense of identity, which is a symptom of the burnout path, is, when you do have some free time, whether you built it in through a boundary or it's the weekend and you feel like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't even know what I want to wear today or, what I want to eat for lunch. And those are things that you normally feel pretty gung-ho about, right? That's an indicator that you've had a shift. And that's an indicator that you are somewhere either on that burnout track or firmly going down it.
Yeah, and I think this also comes back to agency, right? So, being able to, one, do that self-exploration, to have a sense of like, what are the aspects of my work that do bring me joy, satisfaction, engagement? Do I have any agency over being able to focus more solely on those things? Can I delegate, right? Can I go to my manager or maybe a teammate or team member and ask for support or partnership, right? Am I saying yes to just anything because I want to prove myself, or I'm trying to people please? And is there an ability to start setting some healthy boundaries so that what is on your plate, where you are spending the majority of your time, is on those tasks, those activities, those projects that really that fill up that tank, right? That give you energy, that are self-rejuvenating versus just depleting, right? But if there is no agency, right? If you're not able to delegate or ask for support, or you are asking and that's not coming through, or like Micah said, you try to set some boundaries, or say no to a meeting, or try to turn off your computer, and that's not being respected, that might be some clues that you're not in the right environment, right? That this environment is not conducive to you being able to kind of have healthy balance or healthy engagement with your work, even though there might be aspects of that job or that company that you like, right? Or that you initially felt really drawn to.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And what you were saying about kind of focusing on what you're working on and being intentional about that made me remember that one of the things I ask clients to do when I'm suspecting that they're on the burnout spectrum is to stop multitasking for a week. So we have so much stuff coming at us between texts and Slack and email and meetings and all of these different things. Our culture right now is actually breeding inattention.
Yes.
Right? And so if you can control your week, manage your day in a way where you can really create an area of focus, where you can say, this is something I need to get done. I want to focus on it. It's something that I get done usually really well when I have that time and space. I have that concentration, that focus. Test that. Try that. If you're still unable to produce the same results that you previously would have, that also is a big indicator that you might be on that burnout spectrum. So being able to focus and produce really amazing results in areas you used to, and you're able to do that, actually shows that maybe it's just a time management and maybe the wrong fit of a company versus burnout. But if you're not able to produce those same results that you used to do and do so well, then it's time to take stock and look around and think about, okay, where am I on this spectrum? And I'm heading in a direction that I probably don't want to go.
Yep. Yeah. And I think, that's a really good kind of indicator too. So if you do find, oh, wow, I was actually able to create the results. Okay, so maybe this isn't about making a job switch or, leaving this company. But what are some tools and some ways that you can be taking good care of yourself so that when, the big projects come or work gets busy or whatever's happening, tends to breed that stress or that anxiety, how do you address that? At the beginning stages, so that as we talked about this spectrum of burnout, you're not progressing. And I think what I see with a lot of clients is that what can happen too is that kind of the daily normal stressors of, having a job, if they're not addressed, right? If they're not tended to, and you're not taking care of yourself, that can also build up over time and lead to the burnout. So I think there is some self-responsibility in how am I taking care of myself?
Yeah.
Right? And I talk to my clients about kind of the two ways we can be thinking about this. So the first way, is what are my proactive habits and routines, right? What are the things that I'm doing on a daily, consistent basis that set me up to be able to weather and manage any sort of uncertainty, stress, challenges that come up in life, in work, whatnot. And so, that's really different for each person, right? This is about knowing you and what works best for you. So what are those daily habits and routines that you stick to? Good sleep, some sort of movement, right? Whatever that might be for you. Healthy boundaries. But I think we also need a toolkit for when we do get in a moment of stress or anxiety or overwhelm, right? And we, need some things to be able to calm our nervous system, right? So when we're in stress or overwhelm or whatnot, our nervous system is dysregulated, right? And so before we can kind of start to, get back to work or, go to that meeting or, think creatively or strategically, we need to actually tend to our nervous system and regulate and calm. And the good news is that often if we take the time to do that, it can be very quick. So this can be anything from, a few deep breaths, doing a bit of box breathing, a quick walk around the block, a glass of water, right? Even just putting your feet on the ground, right? Feeling your feet on the ground, taking a look at, the objects that are in a room to kind of bring you back to the present moment. So small little tasks or activities can actually work very quickly to be able to calm your nervous system in a moment of stress, rather than what a lot of us do, push through, keep going, right? Use that stress to kind of work harder or, whatnot. And I think that's where we can really trip ourselves up, and the exhaustion and the depletion can get really exacerbated. So.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so proactive. And the point is about this video, and the takeaway is how to manage stress is a very, very important thing in life. And we can be really proactive about it. And all of those things that you just shared are amazing and quite simple ways to tend to yourself, right?
Yeah.
But if those aren't working, and you're finding yourself in these extreme feelings of, loss of sense of identity and productivity and all of these things, then I hope that you now have a greater understanding and you can go and research more about what burnout is, and that it's a true medical condition and that it only gets worse. So if you find yourself saying, oh yeah, a lot of this resonated with me, then, then it's time to really think about, how can I make a change? And so I hope that this has inspired you to, again, take stock, self-reflect, see where you are, and has given you a greater understanding of really what burnout is and how you can care for yourself, and also how you can make a change. If it is true that you are in a career and a company that does not fill you up and you want to make a change so that you don't end up burnout again in the next one. And that's when looking to outside support is really important. So career coaching is an amazing support, and we're here to help you always, but also looking to support through a therapist, talking to your general practitioner, going to yoga, all of these different things. So I hope all of that inspired you a bit, as I said, and thanks for watching. And we're Shannon and Micah from Shine Bright.
Take care.
Take care.